How do you go from feeling completely hopeless to a state of total peace? Well, we're about to dive into a pretty profound personal journey, a transformation that was sparked by meditating on just one single powerful phrase. It's an amazing story about how changing your focus can literally unlock a whole new universe inside of you.
So, our journey starts right here, in this place of deep, profound hopelessness. The author uses this intense line from a poet to paint a picture of his own condition. He felt like he was suffering from this spiritual sickness that was so deep, so incurable, that even the legendary wise physician Luqman couldn't do a thing about it. This is our starting point, and it really sets the stage for the incredible change that's coming.
So what did this despair actually look like? Well, it wasn't just one thing, It was this perfect storm of physical and existential crises. He was isolated, in exile, dealing with the frailties of getting older, and at the exact same time, he's wrestling with this massive, innate love for life and a desire to live forever. And all of that was being crushed by the terrifying reality that everything, including him, was temporary.
And then, right in the middle of this deep crisis, this Qur'anic verse comes to his aid. For us, God suffices, and he is the best disposer of affairs. Now, this wasn't just some comforting phrase to make him feel better. This was the key, the very thing that would start to dismantle his despair and rebuild his entire way of seeing the world. And listen, this was not some casual reflection. His commitment to really getting this verse was absolute. He would recite it 500 times every single day. This intense focus allowed him to just peel back layer after layer of its meaning, and that led to a whole series of profound realizations.
All right, so this leads to his first huge breakthrough. This is where the pivot really happens. He starts to understand that his desire for immortality isn't some personal flaw, but actually a natural instinct that's just misdirected.
And here, he makes this fascinating diagnosis. He realizes that his intense desire to live forever was aimed at the wrong target, his own fleeting self. He describes it like being in love with a mere reflection, instead of being in love with the eternal source of that reflection. And that, he realized, was the true root of all his pain. This comparison just lays out the shift perfectly. You see, loving the mirror of his own self meant he could only see its eventual end, its shattering, which of course leads to despair. But by shifting that love to the eternal source, the Creator, his need for immortality was suddenly satisfied in the Creator's own permanence. The very thing that caused him so much pain became a source of profound joy.
And the positive effects? They were immediate. He started to see himself not as some isolated temporary being, but as a reflection of something truly eternal. This satisfied that deep-seated love for perfection he had. And crucially, it connected him, not just to the Creator, but to everything and everyone else in existence.
Okay, so here's the crucial point. This new perspective didn't just solve his fear of dying, it completely dissolved his profound sense of loneliness and weakness. Let's see how this builds out.
You can think of it like this. His new belief system created these expanding circles of connection. First, by relying on an absolute power, his own weakness was no longer a liability. Then he started to see himself bonded to all other creatures, sharing the same origin. And that connection extended to this sense of brotherhood with all the perfected souls throughout history. Ultimately, his sense of self just expanded beyond his own body, into this boundless, interconnected existence.
And here's the beautiful outcome of all that connection. He realized that through these bonds, the happiness of others, friends, family, even people from the distant past, it was reflected inside of him, and it became his own happiness. His personal joy was no longer just confined to his own little world. This, as you can imagine, leads to another huge reevaluation. If life isn't about my own personal eternal existence, then what is it for? And the focus shifts completely from how long life is to what its purpose, its function is. Let's just compare these two views for a second. Looking inward at himself, life is just this fleeting journey toward an end, and it's a source of constant anxiety. But looking outward toward the Creator, life becomes something else entirely. It's a set of keys, a map, a word of wisdom. Its value isn't in its duration, but in its function as a mirror reflecting a much greater reality.
So how does this mirror actually work? Well, the author points to three key functions. First, his personal weakness becomes a lens to see the Creator's infinite power. Second, his limited, partial knowledge points toward a universal, all-encompassing knowledge.
And finally, the intricate art and design of his own being reveals the incredible skill of the divine artist.
And all of this culminates in this one incredibly powerful statement. Belief isn't just a part of life. It's what gives life its true vitality, its meaning, its purpose. It's what transforms a fleeting glimmer into a real connection with eternity. Okay, now we're arriving at the climax of this whole journey. This is where all these different insights come together into one final, unshakable conviction.
Remember where we started? With a single, sick, weak man feeling attacked from all sides? The transformation is just staggering. Through this new understanding, he says he gained a moral strength so immense that he felt he could challenge the entire world, not with physical force obviously, but with the sheer power of his conviction.
And so we come full circle, back to the verse that started it all. But now, it's not just a phrase to be repeated, it's a truth that he feels in every single particle of his being. It contains all the meaning we've just unpacked. That shift from self to source, the universe of connection, and the true function of life.
This final, beautiful quote really captures his newfound state of peace and trust. He sees the infinite generosity of the Creator in the smallest things, like tiny seeds, and in that simple observation, he finds a sense of absolute sufficiency. Everything he could ever need is provided for.
And so this whole journey leaves us with a question to think about. The author found his anchor in a single verse that completely reshaped his reality. So when you're faced with the undeniable fact that life is temporary, what's your bedrock? What's the ultimate point of support that gives your existence meaning and strength?